Victoria Hayes adjusted her navy blazer as she stepped through the revolving doors of Thornhill Enterprises. The marble lobby gleamed under crystal chandeliers, reminding her daily that she worked for one of the most successful investment firms in Chicago. Her heels clicked against the polished floor as she headed toward the elevators. Clutching her leather briefcase filled with the marketing proposal she had perfected over the weekend. 3 years. She had dedicated 3 years to this company, pouring her heart into every campaign, every strategy, every presentation. And yet Nathan Thornhill, the brilliant but impossibly cold CEO, treated her contributions like background noise. At 37, he had built his empire through calculated decisions and ruthless efficiency. Leaving no room for warmth or appreciation, the morning meeting, the conference room buzzed with nervous energy as the marketing team assembled. Victoria took her seat near the middle of the long glass table, arranging her notes while colleagues whispered around her. Everyone knew that Monday morning meetings with Nathan were tests of endurance. He had a gift for finding flaws in even the most carefully prepared presentations. Nathan entered exactly at 9, his tailored charcoal suit fitting perfectly across his broad shoulders. His dark brown hair was styled with precision, and his hazel eyes scanned the room with the intensity of a hawk surveying prey. He took his seat at the head of the table without greeting anyone. Victoria watched as 3 colleagues presented their projects first. Nathan dissected each one with clinical precision, pointing out weaknesses, questioning assumptions, and dismissing ideas with barely concealed impatience. Her stomach tightened as her turn approached. Victoria's presentation, she stood, connecting her laptop to the projection system. Her hands remained steady despite the anxiety coursing through her veins. She had learned to hide her nervousness well. The presentation outlined a bold, new campaign targeting millennial investors through social media partnerships and influencer collaborations. Victoria had researched every detail, analyzed competitor strategies, and created projections based on solid data. She spoke clearly, making eye contact with team members, explaining her vision with passion. When she finished, silence filled the room. Nathan leaned back in his chair, his fingers steepled beneath his chin. His expression revealed nothing. "This is exactly the kind of thinking that wastes company resources," he said finally, his voice calm but cutting. "Millennial investors do not make decisions based on social media trends. They follow data, performance metrics, and proven track records. This entire campaign is built on assumptions rather than facts." Heat flooded Victoria's cheeks. She had anticipated criticism but not complete dismissal. "Sir, the research shows that younger investors increasingly rely on social platforms for financial education and recommendations. The data supports the data. You have chosen to support your predetermined conclusion," Nathan interrupted. "Cherry-picking statistics does not make a strategy sound. Revise this completely and present something viable next week." Victoria gathered her materials with shaking hands, returning to her seat while Nathan moved on to the next presenter. The meeting continued for another hour, but she barely registered the words being spoken. Her mind replayed his dismissal repeatedly, each memory sharper than the last. An unexpected reunion. The afternoon brought relief when Victoria escaped the office for her lunch break. She walked to the small park 3 blocks away, needing fresh air and distance from the suffocating atmosphere of Thornhill Enterprises. The autumn breeze carried the scent of fallen leaves, and she found her favorite bench beneath an old oak tree. "Victoria Hayes? Is that really you?" She looked up, squinting against the sunlight, and her breath caught. Ryan Mitchell stood before her, his familiar smile warming her instantly. They had grown up as neighbors, spending childhood summers, building tree houses, and sharing dreams. He had moved to Seattle for college 15 years ago, and they had gradually lost touch. "Ryan." Victoria jumped up, embracing him tightly. "What are you doing in Chicago?" "I just accepted a position at Sterling Architecture downtown," he explained, his blue eyes crinkling with genuine happiness. "I started last week and have been meaning to reach out. I cannot believe I just happened to walk past this park." They sat together on the bench, conversation flowing as naturally as it had in their youth. Ryan had matured into a handsome man, his sandy blonde hair slightly tousled, his athletic build evident beneath his casual button-down shirt. More importantly, he listened when she spoke, asked thoughtful questions, and made her laugh in ways she had forgotten were possible. "You look stressed," Ryan observed after she shared a sanitized version of her work situation. "This job is not treating you well." "My boss is brilliant but impossible," Victoria admitted. "No matter what I do, it never measures up to his standards. Sometimes I wonder why I stay." "Because you are brilliant too," Ryan said gently. "And you deserve someone who recognizes that." Growing connection over the following week, Ryan and Victoria fell into an easy rhythm. They met for coffee before work, shared lunch breaks in the park, and spent evenings exploring the city together. Ryan reminded her of who she was beyond her job title, beyond Nathan's constant criticism. With him, she felt valued, seen, appreciated. On Friday evening, Ryan picked her up from the office in his silver sedan. They had planned dinner at a new Italian restaurant in River North. As Victoria walked toward his car, she noticed Ryan's warm smile. The way he opened the door for her, the genuine interest in his questions about her day. She did not notice the black Mercedes parked across the street. She did not see Nathan Thornhill sitting in the back seat, his knuckles white against the leather armrest, his jaw clenched tight as he watched her laugh at something Ryan said. She did not witness the storm of emotions crossing his usually controlled features. Nathan's realization. Nathan had stayed late reviewing quarterly reports when he noticed Victoria leaving the building. He had been about to call her back, remembering a question about the client portfolio, when he saw her approach another man. The easy affection between them was impossible to miss. Something dark and primal twisted in Nathan's chest as he watched Ryan embrace Victoria. The feeling caught him completely off guard. He had spent 3 years maintaining professional distance, convincing himself that his attraction to her was merely an inconvenience to be managed. He treated her harshly to keep her at arm's length, to protect himself from vulnerability, but seeing her in another man's arms shattered every carefully constructed justification. The jealousy that roared through him was raw and consuming, forcing him to confront a truth he had been avoiding. Somewhere between her quiet competence and persistent determination, despite his cruelty, Victoria Hayes had become more than just an employee. She had become someone he wanted, someone he needed, someone he had pushed away so effectively that she had found happiness elsewhere. Nathan sat in his car long after they drove away, the city lights reflecting off the windshield as darkness settled over Chicago. He had built an empire through control and calculation, but he had just realized he had lost something infinitely more valuable without ever truly having it. The game had changed, and Nathan Thornhill always won the games that mattered. Victoria arrived at Thornhill Enterprises on Monday with a lightness in her step that had been absent for months. The weekend with Ryan had filled her with joy and reminded her that life existed beyond conference rooms and critical bosses. They had explored the lakefront, shared stories over wine, and made plans for the upcoming weeks. For the first time in years, she felt genuinely happy. She settled at her desk outside Nathan's office, organizing files and reviewing her calendar. The familiar routine felt different somehow, less oppressive. Perhaps having Ryan in her life had given her perspective, a reminder that her worth was not determined by Nathan's approval or disapproval. At 8:30, Nathan's office door opened. Victoria glanced up, preparing herself for his usual curt greeting or complete lack of acknowledgement. Instead, she found him standing in the doorway, looking directly at her with an expression she could not quite read. "Good morning, Victoria," he said, his deep voice carrying an unfamiliar gentleness. "Could you bring me the Henderson file when you have a moment? And there is no rush." Victoria blinked, momentarily speechless. In 3 years, Nathan had never used her first name. He called her Hayes, or simply gestured for what he needed without words. And he certainly never said there was no rush for anything. "Of course, Mr. Thornhill," she managed. Watching him return to his office with what might have been hesitation in his movements, unexpected praise throughout the morning, Nathan's behavior continued to puzzle her. He thanked her for bringing coffee, complimented her organization of the client meeting schedule, and even asked her opinion on a contract negotiation. Each interaction felt surreal, like stepping into an alternate reality where her boss possessed actual human warmth. During the afternoon executive meeting, Nathan did something that left Victoria genuinely shocked. When discussing quarterly performance, he publicly acknowledged her contribution to the successful Morgan campaign, crediting her strategic thinking for the account's growth. Several colleagues turned to look at her with surprise, knowing Nathan rarely praised anyone. Victoria's approach to the Morgan account demonstrated exactly the kind of innovative thinking we need. Nathan continued, his hazel eyes meeting hers across the conference table. Her instincts were correct, and the results speak for themselves. Victoria felt heat rise to her cheeks, but this time from unexpected recognition rather than humiliation. She nodded her thanks, still trying to reconcile this version of Nathan with the man who had dismissed her presentation so completely just days earlier. The crisis arrives Wednesday afternoon brought chaos. Gerald Pemberton, one of Thornhill Enterprises' most significant investors, threatened to withdraw his entire portfolio worth $40 million. Rumors had reached him about a potential merger that he believed would compromise his investments. The information was incorrect, but Pemberton was notoriously stubborn and quick to make rash decisions. Nathan called Victoria into his office within minutes of receiving the news. His usual composure showed cracks around the edges, tension visible in his squared shoulders and the tight line of his jaw. Pemberton is pulling out unless we can prove the merger rumors are false and provide a comprehensive breakdown of how his portfolio will perform over the next 5 years. Nathan explained, running a hand through his hair in a gesture of frustration Victoria had never witnessed before. I need your help pulling together every communication, every performance metric, and every projection related to his accounts. When does he need this? Victoria asked, already mentally organizing the massive task. Friday morning. Is flying to London Friday afternoon and wants the information before he leaves. Less than 48 hours to compile years of data and create projections that would satisfy one of the most demanding investors in the industry. Victoria took a deep breath and nodded. I will get started immediately. Victoria, Nathan said as she turned to leave. She paused, looking back at him. I know this is asking a lot. Cancel any plans you have for the next 2 days. I will order dinner both nights, and anything you need, just ask. We are in this together. The phrase "we are in this together" resonated, strangely coming from a man who typically operated as though he existed on a separate plane from everyone else. Victoria nodded again and left to begin the monumental task. Working through the night by 9 that evening, Victoria's desk had transformed into a war room of spreadsheets, reports, and financial projections. Nathan had moved his laptop to the conference table in his office, and they worked side by side. The city lights glittering through the floor-to-ceiling windows as the office emptied around them. Nathan had loosened his tie and rolled up his shirt sleeves, revealing strong forearms. Victoria tried not to notice how the casual appearance softened his usually rigid presence. They fell into an efficient rhythm, Victoria pulling data while Nathan analyzed and created projections, occasionally asking her input on client behavior patterns she had observed. You have an exceptional memory for detail, Nathan commented around midnight as Victoria recited specific conversations from client meetings months earlier. I have always known you were talented, but I never fully appreciated the depth of your capabilities. Victoria looked up from her laptop, meeting his gaze directly. You have an interesting way of showing appreciation. Mr. Thornhill, 3 years of criticism does not exactly communicate admiration. Words escaped before she could stop them, fatigue loosening her usual professional filter. She expected anger or cold dismissal. Instead, Nathan leaned back in his chair, something like regret crossing his features. You are right, he said quietly. I have treated you poorly. There are reasons, but they do not excuse my behavior. You deserved better. The unexpected apology hung in the air between them. Victoria did not know how to respond, so she returned her attention to the spreadsheet on her screen, though her mind raced with questions about what had prompted this sudden transformation. Forbidden proximity Thursday passed in a blur of numbers and projections. As they worked through meals, through exhaustion, through the moments when concentration wavered and mistakes threatened, Nathan proved surprisingly patient, offering encouragement. When Victoria's eyes glazed over from reviewing endless columns of data, by Thursday night they had assembled most of what Pemberton required. Victoria stretched in her chair, her neck and shoulders aching from hours hunched over her laptop. Without warning, Nathan stood and moved behind her chair. "May I?" he asked, his hands hovering near her shoulders. Victoria nodded, too tired to overthink the gesture. Nathan's strong hands pressed into her tense muscles, working out the knots with surprising gentleness. She closed her eyes, unable to suppress a small sound of relief as the pain eased. "Carry all your stress here," Nathan observed, his voice low and close to her ear. "You need to take better care of yourself. It's hard to do when working for a demanding boss," Victoria murmured, the words lacking any real bite. Nathan's hands stilled for a moment before continuing their massage. "That demanding boss is realizing he has been a fool." Victoria opened her eyes, turning slightly in her chair to look up at him. Nathan's face was closer than she expected, his hazel eyes darker in the dim office lighting. Something electric passed between them, a charge that made her breath catch. "Mr. Thornhill?" she began, but he shook his head. "Nathan. When it is just us, call me Nathan." The intimacy of the request felt dangerous. Victoria stood abruptly, putting distance between them. "We should finish the final projections. Pemberton will be here in 14 hours. Nathan nodded, but the intensity in his gaze did not diminish. They returned to work, though the air between them felt different now. Charged with possibilities neither dared to name. The confrontation at 3 in the morning. They finally completed the comprehensive package for Pemberton. Victoria leaned back, relief and exhaustion washing over her simultaneously. They had done it. The presentation was flawless, the projections conservative but promising, and every possible concern had been addressed. "We make a good team," Nathan said, closing his laptop with satisfaction. "We do," Victoria agreed, then added boldly, "when you are not being impossible." Nathan laughed, a genuine sound that transformed his entire face. Victoria realized she had never heard him truly laugh before. The sound was rich and warm, completely at odds with his usual stern demeanor. "I deserve that," he admitted, standing and stretching. "Victoria, I owe you an explanation for my behavior these past years." "You do not owe me anything," she said, gathering her things to leave. "Yes, I do." Nathan moved closer, his expression serious. "I was engaged once. Her name was Christine. She worked in finance, brilliant and ambitious. I trusted her completely, gave her access to confidential information about upcoming deals. She used everything I told her to help a competitor, nearly destroying Thornhill Enterprises. The betrayal almost cost me everything I had built." Victoria stopped packing her bag, listening intently. "When you walked into your interview 3 years ago, I saw the same intelligence, the same ambition," Nathan continued, "and it terrified me. So I pushed you away. I criticized you, dismissed your ideas, kept you at a distance. I convinced myself it was protection. But really I was just a coward." "Nathan," Victoria said softly, using his first name without thinking. "I would never. I know that now," he interrupted, stepping closer until only inches separated them. "I've watched you for 3 years, Victoria. Your integrity, your loyalty, your dedication, even when I gave you every reason to leave. You are nothing like Christine. You are remarkable, and I have been too blind and too damaged to see it." Victoria's heart pounded as she looked up at him. The vulnerability in his eyes was overwhelming, so different from the cold mask he usually wore. She should leave. She should mention Ryan. She should maintain professional boundaries. Instead, she stood frozen as Nathan raised his hand, gently tucking a loose strand of hair behind her ear. Tell me to stop," he whispered, his face moving closer to hers. Victoria knew she should. Every rational part of her brain screamed that this was complicated, dangerous, wrong. But her heart, her traitorous heart, that had somehow learned to see past Nathan's walls, wanted this more than logic could deny. When Nathan's lips met hers, the kiss was not gentle or tentative. It was fierce, desperate, full of 3 years of suppressed longing and denied attraction. Victoria kissed him back with equal intensity, her hands fisting in his shirt as he pulled her closer. The world outside the office ceased to exist. There was only Nathan's mouth on hers, his hands in her hair, the solid warmth of his body against hers. Every harsh word, every cruel dismissal faded against the overwhelming truth of this moment. When they finally broke apart, Breathing heavily, reality crashed back. Victoria stepped away, her hand flying to her lips. "I cannot," she whispered. "Ryan, I have been seeing someone." Pain flashed across Nathan's face before his usual control reasserted itself. "I know I saw you together. That is when I realized how badly I had failed with you." "Nathan, this is complicated. I need time to think." He nodded stiffly. "Of course. We should both get some rest before the Pemberton meeting." Victoria gathered her belongings and fled the office, her mind spinning with confusion and guilt. She had kissed her boss, the same man who had made her life difficult for 3 years. And worse, she had wanted it. Some part of her had been waiting for this moment without even realizing it, as she drove home through the empty streets. Victoria knew everything had changed. The careful balance she had built between her professional life and her growing relationship with Ryan had shattered with one unexpected kiss. Victoria sat in her apartment Friday morning, staring at her reflection in the bathroom mirror. Dark circles shadowed her eyes from lack of sleep, but the exhaustion was nothing compared to the turmoil churning inside her. The memory of Nathan's kiss burned through her thoughts, competing with the guilt that twisted her stomach. Every time she thought of Ryan, her phone buzzed with a text from Ryan asking about breakfast. She had avoided his calls last night, claiming exhaustion from work. The lie tasted bitter, but how could she face him when her lips still tingled from kissing another man? A man she had convinced herself she despised, yet whose vulnerability had cracked open something deep within her heart. She texted back a brief apology, explaining she needed to prepare for the critical Pemberton meeting. Not entirely a lie, but not the whole truth either. Ryan responded with understanding and encouragement, his kindness only amplifying her guilt. Victoria dressed in her most professional navy suit, armoring herself for what promised to be an emotionally complicated day. She needed to present a flawless front for Pemberton while navigating the charged atmosphere between herself and Nathan. The thought of facing him after last night made her pulse quicken with a mixture of anxiety and something she refused to name. The Pemberton meeting. Gerald. Pemberton arrived at Thornhill Enterprises at exactly 9 in the morning, his silver hair perfectly groomed, his expensive suit radiating old money and exacting standards. Victoria had encountered him twice before and knew his reputation for being impossible to satisfy. He expected perfection and had no patience for excuses or errors. Nathan greeted him in the main conference room, his professional mask firmly in place. When Victoria entered with the presentation materials, Nathan's eyes met hers for one brief, electric moment before he turned his full attention to their demanding investor. Victoria saw nothing in his expression to indicate the intimacy they had shared hours earlier. Yet she felt the awareness crackling between them like static electricity. "Mr. Pemberton, thank you for giving us the opportunity to address your concerns," Nathan began, his voice steady and authoritative. "Victoria Hayes, my senior strategist, and I have prepared a comprehensive analysis of your portfolio and projections for the coming years." Victoria noted how Nathan had elevated her title, giving her credit and status in front of this crucial client. She stepped forward, connecting her laptop to the projection system with hands that remained remarkably steady despite her internal chaos. For the next 2 hours, they presented their findings. Victoria handled the historical performance, data and client relationship insights, while Nathan managed the financial projections and strategic recommendations. They moved in perfect synchronization, anticipating each other's points, building on one another's arguments seamlessly. Whatever personal complications existed between them, professionally, they functioned as a unified force. Pemberton asked sharp questions, which challenged assumptions, and scrutinized every detail. Victoria answered with confidence born from exhaustive preparation, while Nathan provided the broader strategic context. Gradually, she watched Pemberton's skeptical expressions soften into something resembling approval. "This is exceptional work," Pemberton finally admitted, leaning back in his leather chair. "The level of detail and the conservative projections demonstrate exactly the kind of careful management I expect. The merger rumors were clearly unfounded, and your strategic vision for my portfolio growth is sound." Relief flooded through Victoria, though she maintained her composed exterior. Nathan nodded with satisfaction, shaking Pemberton's hand as they concluded the meeting. The $40 million investment would remain with Thornhill Enterprises after Pemberton departed. Nathan turned to Victoria in the empty conference room. That was remarkable. We saved the account because of your preparation and insight. Thank you. Did it together, Victoria replied, gathering her materials while avoiding prolonged eye contact. I should get back to my desk. There are other clients who need attention. Victoria? Wait. Nathan's voice carried an urgency that made her pause. We need to talk about last night. There is nothing to discuss, she said quietly. It was late. We were exhausted. Emotions were running high. It should not have happened. But it did happen, Nathan insisted, moving closer. And I cannot pretend it meant nothing. Ryan's surprised before Victoria could respond. Her phone rang. Ryan's name flashed on the screen and guilt crashed over her again. She answered, stepping away from Nathan. Hey, I know you are busy, but I am actually in your building lobby, Ryan said cheerfully. I wanted to surprise you with lunch to celebrate whatever important meeting you had this morning. Can you get away? Victoria's heart sank. Ryan, that is sweet, but I really should not leave right now. Just 30 minutes, he coaxed. You need to eat, and I have been looking forward to seeing you. She glanced at Nathan, whose jaw had tightened at hearing the male voice on her phone. All right, 30 minutes. I will be right down. After ending the call, Victoria met Nathan's gaze directly. I need to go. With him, Nathan stated, rather than asked, something dark flickering in his hazel eyes. His name is Ryan, and yes, he is my friend, someone who has shown me nothing but kindness and respect. Something I did not receive here until a few days ago. The words landed like a slap. Nathan flinched, but nodded slowly. You are right. I have no claim on you. No right to your time or affection. I forfeited that through 3 years of cruelty. Go enjoy your lunch. Victoria left before she could second-guess herself. But Nathan's wounded expression followed her into the elevator. Lunch, Revelations Ryan, had reserved a table at a charming bistro 2 blocks from Thornhill Enterprises. He stood when Victoria approached, pulling out her chair with the same considerate gestures that had drawn her to him. His smile was warm and genuine, his blue eyes bright with affection. You look exhausted, he observed with concern after they ordered. This job is taking too much from you. We had a critical investor situation, Victoria explained, sipping her water. The past few days have been intense, but we resolved it this morning. You always say we when you talk about work, Ryan noted. But I suspect you do most of the heavy lifting while your boss takes the credit. Victoria started to correct him, but stopped. How could she explain the complicated dynamic that had developed between herself and Nathan? How could she describe the way they had worked together seamlessly? The unexpected vulnerability Nathan had revealed, the kiss that had turned her world upside down. Ryan, we need to talk, she began, guilt making her voice unsteady. He reached across the table, taking her hand. Actually, I need to say something first. Victoria, these past 2 weeks with you have been incredible. Being around you again has reminded me why I cared so deeply for you when we were young. I think I never stopped caring, even when distance separated us. Victoria's chest tightened as she sensed what was coming. I want more than friendship, Ryan continued, his expression earnest and hopeful. I want to explore a real relationship with you. I know it is fast, but sometimes you just know when something is right, and this feels right. The declaration should have filled her with joy. Ryan was kind, stable, safe. He treated her with respect and appreciation. He represented everything logical and healthy. Yet Victoria found herself hesitating. Nathan's kiss haunting her thoughts. Ryan, you are wonderful, she said carefully. But I need to be honest with you. Something happened at work. Something that has confused me. Ryan's expression shifted, concern replacing hope. What kind of something? My boss, Nathan, he kissed me last night. We were working late and emotions were complicated and it just happened. The words tumbled out in a rush. I did not plan it, did not expect it, but I cannot pretend it did not affect me. Ryan withdrew his hands slowly, processing the information. Do you have feelings for him? I do not know, Victoria admitted miserably. 3 years I have worked for him. 3 years he has been cold and critical and impossible. Then suddenly he changes, shows me this vulnerable side, tells me he has been pushing me away because of past hurt. I am confused about what I feel and what is real. Victoria, I need to tell you something too, Ryan said after a long pause. I did not just happen to walk past that park 2 weeks ago. I found you deliberately. I looked up where you worked, learned your routine, engineered that chance meeting. Victoria stared at him, surprise momentarily displacing her guilt. What? Why would you do that? Because I never stopped thinking about you after I moved away, Ryan explained. I kept tabs on your life through social media, through mutual friends. When I accepted the Chicago position, reconnecting with you was one of my primary motivations. I built this idea of us in my mind, this perfect reunion where we would pick up where childhood left off and build something beautiful. He ran his hand through his sandy hair, looking more vulnerable than she had seen him. But I realize now that I was in love with a memory, with the girl I knew 15 years ago. I did not account for the woman you have become, for the life you have built, for the complications that come with real adult relationships. Difficult choices. I care about you, Ryan, Victoria said softly. You have been wonderful to me these past weeks. You reminded me of joy and lightness when I had forgotten those feelings existed. But you care about him too, Ryan finished for her. This Nathan, who has apparently gotten under your skin, despite treating you poorly. Victoria nodded, tears pricking her eyes. I do not understand it myself. Logic tells me to choose you, the safe choice, the kind choice. But my heart is pulling me in a direction that makes no sense. Ryan smiled sadly. The heart rarely makes logical sense. Victoria, I want you to be happy, even if that happiness does not include me. But I need to ask something. Are you drawn to Nathan because of genuine feelings, or because he represents a challenge? Sometimes we convince ourselves we want the difficult person because they make us work for their approval. The question struck deep. Victoria had asked herself the same thing repeatedly since Nathan's kiss. Was she attracted to him, or to the idea of conquering his coldness? Was this real, or just a response to finally receiving the validation she had craved for 3 years? I honestly do not know, she whispered. But I think I need to figure it out before I can move forward with anyone. Ryan nodded, signaling for the check. Then I'm going to make this easier for you. I am stepping back. Take the time you need to sort through your feelings. If you decide Nathan is where your heart truly lies, I wish you happiness. If you discover he is not, and you want to explore what we might have together, call me. But do not choose me because I am the safe option. Choose me because you genuinely want me. They parted outside the restaurant with a hug that felt like goodbye. Victoria walked back to Thornhill Enterprises with tears streaming down her face, grateful for her sunglasses hiding her emotional state. Ryan's grace and understanding somehow made everything harder. He deserved better than being someone's backup plan. Nathan's truth. Victoria returned to find Nathan standing by the windows in his office, staring out at the Chicago skyline. He turned when she entered, taking in her tear-stained cheeks with immediate concern. What happened? Did he hurt you? The protective edge in Nathan's voice surprised her. No, Ryan was perfect. That is the problem. Victoria closed the office door behind her, needing privacy for this conversation. He was understanding and kind, and he stepped back to give me space to figure out my feelings, which is more than I deserve after kissing you while seeing him. Nathan crossed the room, stopping just within her personal space. Victoria, I need you to understand something. What happened last night was not a mistake or a moment of weakness for me. I have been attracted to you since the day you walked into your interview. I have thought about you constantly for 3 years, while treating you terribly because I was afraid of being vulnerable again. How can I trust that this is real? Victoria asked, her voice breaking. How do I know this is not just you wanting what you cannot have? Or worse, some power play because you saw me with someone else. You cannot know for certain, Nathan admitted. I have given you no reason to trust me, but I am asking you to take a chance anyway. Let me prove that I can be the man you deserve. Let me show you that beneath the cold exterior I built to protect myself, There is someone capable of loving you the way you should be loved. Victoria searched his face, looking for signs of deception or manipulation. Instead, she saw only raw honesty and hope mixed with fear. This vulnerable Nathan was so different from the man who had criticized her presentations and dismissed her ideas. Yet she recognized truth in his words, felt the sincerity in his presence. "I am terrified," she confessed. "Terrified of making the wrong choice, of getting hurt, of hurting someone else. Ryan is safe and kind. You are complicated and wounded. Logic says I should choose him. But your heart is telling you something different," Nathan said quietly, reaching up to cup her face gently. "I can see it in your eyes, Victoria. You feel this connection between us two. It is messy and complicated and probably inadvisable given our professional relationship, but it is real." Victoria closed her eyes, leaning into his touch despite her reservations. "If we do this, things have to change. No more public criticism. No more treating me as less than. I need a partner, not a boss, who alternates between cold distance and sudden affection." "Agreed," Nathan said immediately. "And I am promoting you officially to Senior Vice President of Strategy. You have earned it 10 times over. Your compensation will reflect your true value to this company, and you will report directly to the board, not to me. We need to separate our professional and personal relationships. You cannot just promote me because we kissed," Victoria protested. "I am promoting you because you saved a $40 million account this morning and have been performing at an executive level for 3 years without proper recognition," Nathan corrected. "The fact that I am also in love with you is separate, though I admit the timing is convenient." Victoria's eyes flew open. "You love me?" Nathan smiled, a real smile that transformed his entire face. "Yes. I have probably loved you for a long time without admitting it to myself. I am done hiding from that truth. I am done protecting myself at your expense. If you give me a chance, Victoria Hayes, I promise to spend every day proving I am worthy of you." The choice Victoria stood at the crossroads between safety and risk, between logic and emotion, between the man who represented comfort and the man who challenged her. Ryan's kind face flashed through her mind, his patient understanding, his uncomplicated affection. But when she looked at Nathan, she felt something deeper, something that terrified and exhilarated her simultaneously. "Choose you," she whispered, the words feeling both reckless and absolutely right. "I choose this complicated, messy, probably inadvisable situation because my heart will not let me walk away. But Nathan, if you hurt me, if you go back to treating me the way you did before, I am gone. I will not sacrifice my self-respect for anyone, no matter how I feel about them." "I understand," Nathan said solemnly. "And I promise you, Victoria, I will spend the rest of my life making sure you never regret this choice." He kissed her then, soft and tender, full of promise rather than desperation. Victoria melted into him, her hands sliding up to rest against his chest where she could feel his heart pounding. This kiss was different from last night's passionate collision. This was a beginning, a commitment, a leap of faith into unknown territory. When they separated, Nathan rested his forehead against hers. "We should probably discuss how to navigate this professionally. The board will need to know, HR will require documentation, and we need to establish clear boundaries." Always the strategist, Victoria teased, but she appreciated his practical thinking. "We will figure it out together. But first, I need to have one more conversation with Ryan. He deserves honesty and closure." Nathan nodded, though she saw the flash of insecurity in his eyes. "Will you come back?" "Yes," Victoria promised. "I am choosing you, Nathan. That means showing up even when things are difficult. I am not running away." 3 months later, Victoria stood in the same conference room where she had once presented ideas only to have them dismissed. Now, as Senior Vice President of Strategy, she led the meeting while the executive team listened attentively. Her innovative social media campaign for millennial investors had exceeded all projections. Bringing in over 30 million in new accounts, Nathan sat at the far end of the table, pride evident in his eyes as he watched her present. They had navigated the past 3 months carefully, establishing professional boundaries while building their personal relationship. The board had been surprisingly supportive once they disclosed their involvement, and Victoria had proven her promotion was based entirely on merit through her subsequent performance. After the meeting concluded, Nathan caught her hand as they left the conference room. "Dinner tonight? I want to take you somewhere special. Another expensive restaurant where you try to impress me?" Victoria teased. "Actually, I was thinking we could cook together at my place. Something simple and ordinary." Nathan's smile was soft, the cold mask she had once known completely gone. "I want to build a life with you, Victoria. Not just grand gestures, but everyday moments, too." Victoria kissed him quickly, mindful of their professional setting. "That sounds perfect." She had received a text from Ryan last week. He had started dating someone from his architecture firm and sounded genuinely happy. His message had included thanks for her honesty and a wish for her happiness. The guilt she had carried had finally eased, replaced by gratitude that they had found their respective paths. As Victoria gathered her materials and prepared for her next meeting, she reflected on the unexpected journey that had brought her here. She had taken a risk on the complicated man who had once made her life difficult. She had chosen her heart over logic, his passion over safety, and she had discovered that sometimes the most unlikely love stories become the most beautiful ones. Nathan had proven himself worthy of her trust, showing up every day with patience, respect, and genuine love. He had transformed from the cold boss who mocked her into the partner, who celebrated her victories and supported her through challenges. Victoria smiled. She caught Nathan's eye across the office. He winked and she felt her heart flutter the same way it had the night he first kissed her. Some risks were worth taking. Some complicated people were worth fighting for. And some love stories began in the most unexpected places, requiring courage to embrace them fully. She had chosen love over fear, and it had changed everything.